Whoa, what is this place? Look at all these terrifying scenes. But why are all the people so still? Guillotines, ruthless murders. I know what I'll be dreaming about tonight. They're all wax models. They're amazingly realistic, aren't they? What do you think, Bruno? Shocked? Wax models? I read about dead bodies and wax once in a magazine about strange phenomena. Depending on how corpses are kept after death, parts of them can turn into wax. Apparently, it's called oh my goodness, adipocure. Stop talking about creepy things like that, Bruno. You're scaring me. Anyway, adipocure doesn't form readily when the what? I just remembered something else I read in another magazine about strange phenomena. There was an old lady, maybe a witch, who used to pour molten wax over corpses and put them on display. None of the exhibits in here are real. They're all entirely man-made replicas. They can't be. Do you really expect me to believe that? Just look at them. Oh. There's no way anybody can make models of people that are this realistic. And they're all such gruesome scenes. Wait. What is it? Oh, no. I must be seeing things. Whose arm is this? What is this? That big heavy curtain is in a very prominent position, isn't it? I've had a nasty feeling. I have a nasty feeling there's going to be something truly terrifying behind it. Oh, yes. That's the famous Tuspel's special exhibit. It depicts one of England's most notorious killers. Do you want to pay the extra fee to have a look? Pay more money to be even more terrified? Oh, let me think about that for a moment. It was only a suggestion. Is this an arm? It looks like an arm. Maybe one of the waxwork models has fallen over. You don't think it could be the work of one of the mass murderers in here, do you? Bruno, stop scaring me. Is it a wax arm or a real one? Oh, come on, you're always pointing that finger of yours in court. Poke that arm now and see how it feels. Objection. Okay, we don't even check. These models are so well made, I can't tell what's a waxwork and what's a real human. Or maybe all of the exhibits are real people, and when it's closing time and all the visitors have gone home, they suddenly start moving about. So just thinking about it makes me wish it was closing time already and I was on my way home. Is it an example of Western tsujigiri? I don't know what that is. You know, when an unscrupulous samurai randomly attacks a passerby to test his sword? I still don't know. No. But actually, a waxwork samurai would probably be hugely popular. Could you model it, you think? Doing that tsujigiri thing you mentioned? Well, I do have a sword, but I have no intention of testing how sharp it is on a human subject. For now, at least. It's the great detective, Mr. Sherlock Sholmes. Mr. Sholmes has his own wax statue in here? Really? Well, he is world famous after all. It's an uncanny resemblance, isn't it? Makes my skin crawl to look at it. I know. But look, Bruno, you can kick this Hurley and he doesn't move a muscle. You can't go around kicking the exhibit's iris. Wait. It just moved, I'm sure. And not just a little bit either. Really? Did it? And look closely. There are beads of sweat on the face of this waxwork model. Shall we move on, Iris? Over there, look, there's a great murder scene to enjoy, much more appealing. My dear fellow, I take exception to your recoiling in such a manner as if you've seen something truly abhorrent. Mr. Sholmes? I knew it. Iris, what possessed you? I strictly forbade you from divulging my temporary waxwork secret to Mr. Naruhodo. Temporary waxwork? What do you mean? And that kick, could you not have exercised a little more restraint? You winded me. Varuno has something he needs to ask you. Oh, a question? And I thought you'd probably be getting bored too. So here we are. Well, I can't deny that your timing was impeccable. A mere 2 minutes of more of being stationary like that, and my great brain, upon which all my success has been built, would have turned to wax. Thank goodness we arrived in time. Indeed, in many ways, the pair of you just saved the world from an unimaginable loss. Oh, Hurley, you do like to talk nonsense, don't you? He could know something, it's true, about Lord Van Zykes and what happened in the past to change him. Now that you're here, let's take our time. How can I be of assistance? Well, you're in luck. I'm suddenly quite taken with the idea of conversing. Oh, well, actually, I'm in quite a hurry, and if my eyes don't deceive me, I believe something is afoot within the walls of this very museum. A most fascinating case, if I'm not mistaken. Really? Moreover, I have a strong suspicion that it's related to the matter about which you've come to me now. But how could it be? We shall speak again presently, my dear fellow, but for now, I must return to my work. What? Back to being a temporary waxwork exhibit? What is this place? Madame Tuspels came to London from France 3 years ago, I understand. Since she opened this little waxwork museum last year, it's enjoyed great popularity in London. There are museums like this in Japan too, but these displays are something else. I mean, they aren't made from actual real people, are they? The extreme realism of these waxwork models is a particular secret of the Tuspels family, they say. They earned renown during the French Revolution for waxworks of victims of the guillotine. That sounds grim. The gruesome scenes were portrayed with such realism in the expressions of the faces of the condemned. Apparently, the sculptors would make the models directly from the corpses, right there at the site of the executions. That really turns my stomach. That's just one of several legends about the Tuspels family. Whether there's any truth to it or in it, I couldn't say. But anyway, this museum houses models of famous people from all over the globe. Nevertheless, the most popular area of the museum by quite some margin is this House of Horrors. House of Horrors? Of course, visitor numbers are dwindling now as a result of the Great Exhibition, but people usually flock here to see the exhibits of some of London's most vile criminals at their gruesome work. Naturally, most of the miscreants portrayed here were sent to the gallows, so they're even stiffer now than the models of them. Have you heard of poor taste? My dear fellow, the public live for poor taste. They yearn to be shocked. So, the hideous exhibits in here they're all portrayals of real events that actually took place. Is it just me, or did the temperature in here just seem to drop? Anyway, I advise you not to think too deeply about what you see here. Oh, he's back to being a waxwork, is he? What do you mean by a temporary waxwork, Mr. Sholmes? Exactly what you see. I'm part of the exhibits here, catching these criminals in the act. Catching them? Every half an hour, I home in on a different killer in one of the displays and adopt a new pose to ensnare them. When members of the public come for a closer look, I offer them my hand to shake. For a shilling, I'll happily allow them to take a photograph with us. Us? Does he mean him and the waxwork murderers in here? But why? My dear fellow, isn't it obvious? For the money! He really roared at me there. Very fitting for the House of Horrors. As it stands, I may struggle to pay this month's rent, and I have the ravenous iris to consider. I'm so hungry. If push comes to shove, I shall have to ask you to do your bit. What's he threatening to rope me into now? So, with that in mind, how about a photograph? As a special treat, you may have your pick of the murderers and scoundrels in here. The choice is yours. Maybe some other time. Remember, Mr. Naruhodo, ignore me at your peril. Is it just me, or did his final remark there sound a lot like a curse? Well, what is it you'd like to ask me then? Actually, it's about Lord Van Zykes. Well, our friend Mr. Reaper. How did you find him? Well, I trust. And so I filled Mr. Sholmes in about everything I'd learned. About Lord Van Zykes, about Professor Hairbrain, and about the strange coincidence that they had been at the university together. So I'm wondering what it was that happened to make Lord Van Zykes such a different person. I was sure that you'd know, Hurley. You said there was something going on here in this exhibit hall before, that something was afoot, and that you believed it was related to what I wanted to ask you about. Mr. Sholmes? He suddenly clammed up. Well, it seems we've reached an unavoidable... Greetings! Oh, hello. Where'd she appear from? And what's she wearing? Did she look any more mysterious? I hope you are appreciating my museum. Sorry? Have we? Mr. Sholmes, do you know this? Not again! My apologies. I am Esmeralda Tuspels. This is my museum of waxwork. What? You're the Madame Tuspels? Yes, sir. Though only 26 years young, I might add. Is that significant somehow? I'm a madame in name only. It adds a certain je ne sais quoi. Right. Firstly, I must apologize for my waxworks, or rather, one waxwork in particular. That'll be Mr. Sholmes, then. I was led to believe he was a great detective, but he seems unable to settle. Next time you move from your designated exhibit, there will be toil and trouble. She sounds deadly serious. That's a problem. How am I supposed to ask him about Lord Van Zykes? Well, let's not forget what Hurley said before, about something being afoot. Right here in the museum, I mean. Yes, I know, but... I'm so curious. I want to know what's happening here. Haven't we got enough on our plate already? Did you make all these waxworks, Madame Tuspels? I did. I'm the third generation of waxwork artisans, you know. Gosh. It was my grandmother who began the tradition in my family. Her fortunes were checkered, living through the turbulent times of the French Revolution as she did. Though that is when she acquired the savoir-faire that leads to the astonishing life-likeness. All these waxworks really do look as though they're alive. In fact, they look more alive than Hurley. What you see exhibited here represents the most atrocious of London's criminal past. All the waxworks were created in the presence of the real people on which they are modeled. In the hours immediately following their executions, that is the secret to the extraordinary lifelikeliness. That sounds terrifying. All walks of life have similar challenges, I'm sure. To carry out one's trade par excellence, one must go to extraordinary lengths. My exhibits are a reflection of society. I create only that which the public wishes to see. Why couldn't the public have wished for something less horrifying? Do not fear. Sorry? This room is the only one in the museum with such a macabre theme. I do hope you'll explore. There are models of famous singers, actors, politicians, something for every taste, I hope. It was Iris who dragged me straight in here, come to think of it. Sorry, perhaps I should have eased you into things. What's the situation with that? Oh, my temporary waxwork bottle? He approached me some days ago, you see, with a business proposal. Oh, what sort of business proposal? My dear madam, what these spare exhibits need is the addition of a world-famous great detective. Or words to that effect. Naturally, I am well aware that Mr. Sholmes is widely known in London as a talented detective. It's great detective, actually. He's very specific about it. Yes, the creme de la creme. So I was keen to come to some arrangement with him, of course. But sadly, we were unable to agree terms. Let me guess, someone wanted to charge an exorbitant price for his services? For a mere £500, I will dive into your cauldron of wax this very moment. Or words to that effect. Mr. Sholmes might have overdone it slightly with the sales pitch. Regrettably, the museum has a shortage of funds at the moment due to unforeseen circumstances. So we came to the current arrangement instead. Surely he doesn't really need to do what he's doing though, does he? I would think not, but he was very insistent. I have a 50-shilling problem that must be resolved by the morning. Or words to that effect. It's the pawnbroker, that's what it is. He must have something to redeem. Is the consulting detective work not going so well? I wonder, could I ask you something? Bien, sir. I'm just curious, is anything going on in the museum at the moment? Some kind of incident, perhaps? Whoever suggested such a thing to you. Oh, it was your temporary waxwork over there who mentioned it to me a little. Oh, he disappeared. A wax model is a work of art, not some tawdry object for trade. There you are. Leaving the exhibit again when you should be working? Do you wish to be melted down? My dear Madam Tuspel, save your reprimands. There are more pressing concerns. The wax can wait. It's our ideas about your current problem we must throw into the melting pot instead. Personally, I would advise you not to involve the police. Why ever not? She's turned as white as a sheet. Because you have at your disposal a great detective whose services you may employ for a mere 50 shillings. Though please be aware that I insist upon payment in advance. Very well. Let us see if the great detective is able to live up to his name, shall we? Before I engage my analytical processes, I must ask you to clarify something. What, pray, is behind the curtain? That is the Tuspel special exhibit. There is an extra charge to see it. Ah, the special exhibit in the House of Horrors. It must depict a special killer, then, I presume. Would you be so kind as to draw back the curtain, I wonder? Absolute non. There's nothing amiss behind there. Nothing amiss, madam? What about the arm protruding ominously from under the curtain? I strongly encourage you to allow me to see what lies beyond before the situation worsens. Yeah, very well. I will draw back the curtains, but only a Sukon? I must confess, I peeked behind the curtain earlier. The Tuskspell special exhibit is a very bleak graveyard scene indeed. And yet, somewhat surprisingly, the waxwork killer one would expect is nowhere to be seen. What does strike one, however, is the portly gentleman lying peacefully on his back on the floor. Well then perhaps, Mr. Sholmes, that man on the floor is the ruthless killer himself. I'm afraid not, my dear fellow. He's a perfectly ordinary London gentleman. Not even a waxwork, in fact. What? As skillfully made as these waxworks are, they are always distinguishable from real humans. So, allow me to present my two conclusions. The first is that a sizable business transaction has been taking place in this special exhibit. Why would you say that? And the second is that the aforementioned transaction is linked to a serious crime. She looks as pale as candle wax. I don't understand. So, Madam Tuskspells, as you've agreed to my fee, you shall now have the pleasure of seeing this famously handsome, famously great, handsome, sure, I guess, great detective and temporary exhibit at work. To begin with, we must ask ourselves what exactly is afoot here in the museum. The answer is revealed by the bundle of banknotes protruding so helpfully from your bag. In my estimation, some 200 pounds. That is all my own money. So what does this large sum of money reveal? Ah, not as much as the involuntary glance you cast, it would seem, Madam Tuskspells. Yes, the answer lies where your eyes fall now. The significance of the 200 pounds is revealed by that public notice. Waxwork for sale? Your business has hit hard times, it would seem. In short, you sold the infamous killer, the centerpiece of your special exhibit for the sum of 200 pounds. Now, let us explore the next curiosity with which we are presented. Who is this portly gentleman stretched out so peacefully on the floor? It would appear the man has suffered a severe shock, the cause of which is clearly known to you. Unfortunately, madame, keeping secrets does not appear to be your forte. What dealt the man such a shocking blow was, of course, that 200 pounds. It would appear that you twisted this gentleman around your little finger most effectively. What are you suggesting? He rashly agreed to purchase the waxwork for the sum of 200 pounds. Only when he came to hand the money over did it occur to him what an extortionate amount he was paying. But the money was no longer in his hands. And the result, the scene we see before us. He collapsed in shock. Yes, the killer in this special exhibit fetched a killer price. We can only pray that the gentleman's dreams are not plagued with regret. The question that arises then is what has become of the waxwork that changed hands? Let us consider that problem for a moment. You cannot possibly. What immediately strikes me about this conundrum is the young man standing over there. Who is this fellow? To find the answer, we need only observe his neckerchief, such as is worn by policemen as a secret sign to fellow members of the force that a crime is being perpetrated. Yes, this young man is an undercover policeman currently investigating this museum. I know him well, in fact. It's Sergeant John Clay. What are you talking about? The man's quite a celebrity. He received triple accolades at last year's policing awards. But next, we turn our attention to the old man sat before him with the particularly unsightly visage. Visage? I don't know how to say it. I've been watching closely and he hasn't moved a muscle, almost in fact as if he were a waxwork. But your reaction only confirms my suspicions, madame. I noticed it at once, of course. Observe! The telltale sign that instantly proves whether or not this old man is a waxwork is the obvious price tag. Threepence? A tragically low price, you might say. Though perhaps the going rate for aging waxworks riddled with cracks. And yet you sold it to the portly gentleman for an exorbitant £200. The sort of plucky behavior that's sure to attract the attention of Scotland Yard. Isn't that so, madame? Yes, the waxwork you sold has already been seized by the police and remains in their custody as we speak. The old man must be reunited with his grave in the special exhibit, and not a moment too soon. This concludes Sherlock Sholmes' great deduction of this horrifying puzzle. I see I've stunned you all into silence. You have, Hurley, you have. And you've obviously upset this young lady in the process. Her cauldron looks awfully hot. If I could just bring up one point, Mr. Sholmes. The notorious Naruhodo, 1 point. I'm all ears, my dear fellow. According to your deduction, then, the special exhibit featured this old policeman. So, that would mean that he's particularly ruthless. He's the particularly ruthless murderer, wouldn't it? The killer policeman, Ottermole. Sorry? It was a mysterious series of murders that rattled the capital only last year. The police rushed to the scene every time, only to find the culprit had disappeared into the ether. And it turned out the culprit was a policeman himself, a senior officer by the name of Ottermole. So you mean that's who's the sinister-looking old man there supposed to be? Indeed, it is a particularly grim face, is it not? Unforgettable, in fact. Yes, I remember that odious countenance only too well. But is £200 a lot of money for a wax model? It would be enough to afford one of the latest steam carriages if that puts things in perspective. So, it's quite a lot then. Is there anything else you wish to add? Before I melt you down? That bubbling wax is looking more and more ominous. The smell of all that molten wax is starting to worry me. Mr. Sholmes did more or less just accuse her to her face, so I think I might have to call on your assistance here, Iris, if that's alright, to make some minor corrections to the great detective's great deductions. Of course it's alright. We'll soon set things straight. Well, let's get started then, shall we? Before Madame Tussbells vents her anger. Just what I was waiting to hear, my dear fellow. So, Madame Tussbells, in accordance with our agreement, You shall now have the pleasure of seeing this famously great detective and temporary exhibit at work. Okay. Okay, bundle of banknotes, 200 pounds. Okay, that public notice. She definitely looked in this direction, it's true. But I'm not sure she'd sell any of her waxworks, even for 200 pounds. Oh? She must pour her heart and soul into making them, don't you think? Over and above the wax. If it were me, I wouldn't sell them for anything. For that much money, I would, but it sounds like that makes me a bad person. Well, anyway, I wonder if the 200 pounds could have some other significance. Let's follow that furtive glance again and see if there's anything that could explain it. Oh, I can't look up, can I? What's that note doing pinned on the wall there? Oh yes, let's see. Dear Madame Tuspels, we've taken the prisoner from this room. The price for his safe return is 200 pounds. Have the money ready by noon on the 23rd of October. What? It's just like the sort of thing that's left behind when someone is kidnapped. Yes, it's a ransom note. Exactly. The significance of the 200 pounds is revealed by that ransom note. Quite so, and we must congratulate these criminals on their inventiveness abducting a waxwork. 200 pounds is no small ransom fee, yet you clearly intend to pay it. The model in question has special importance, so I put together all the money I have. In summary, then, the 200 pounds you have in your handbag is ransom money. Now, let us explore the next curiosity in which we are presented. Alright, who is this guy? Like, yeah, who the heck is this guy? Okay, 200 pounds. We already know it's not. So if the waxwork was kidnapped, where does that leave us in terms of who this man is? We could just ask him when he comes around. I think the point of this exercise is to understand the beauty of the deduction process, Iris. Yeah, you're right. Hurley's trying so hard, we mustn't let him down. Well, there's little doubt that he suffered a shock. That much seems clear. But in that case, what's Madame Tuspels trying to hide? Let's have a closer look. Okay, what dealt... Does she have something... Oh, ma'am? What the hell is this? Oh, it's just her hand. Why does it look? It looks. Maybe it's just the wax. I think it's just the wax. I was like, why? She's so pale, and I thought it was like a random ass hand. Maybe it's like a fake wax hand. This is just Madame Tuspel's right hand, isn't it? Yes, it must be. I can clearly see her left hand after all. Oh, but wait a minute. This is a left hand as well. Don't say such creepy things, Iris, please. And it seems very stiff, too. In fact, it's really hard. You mean it's made of wax? Maybe this thing? Because, like, I mean, I would freak out, too. I wouldn't faint, but I'd be like, what the fuck is this, girl? Maybe this. What dealt the man such a shocking blow was, of course, the waxwork hand. Indeed, with a solid waxwork limb, one could deliver a very substantial blow. How could you... The hand protruding from the bottom of your cape. It ought to be a right hand, but closer inspection reveals that it is in fact a left hand. and somewhat masculine as well. In other words, it does not belong to you, madame. It's the hand of a waxwork model. Some of the visitors to my museum can be troublesome. They meddle with the exhibits and cause damage. So you mean that arm? Yes, this gentleman saw fit to try to remove it as a souvenir. No small keepsake. Like taking a whole branch of a cherry... like taking a whole branch of a cherry tree when you go to view the blossoms. I'm afraid I had to teach the man a lesson. You confronted the man and tried to take the arm back. And the result? The scene we see before us. He was knocked unconscious. A point we may need to revisit later, but for the time being, we have our conclusion. Yes, the killer in this special exhibit has been kidnapped. The question that arises is, okay, what became of the waxwork when it changed hands? Let's consider the problem. Okay, this guy. The neckerchief. According to Mr. Sholmes, the yellow neckerchief is a sign to other policemen that a crime is underway. A way of communicating with his colleagues without revealing his identity. Yes. It's a secret that's closely guarded by Scotland Yard. That Mr. Sholmes didn't hesitate to give away. Well, uncovering secrets is in any true detective's nature, of course. Okay, right. Anyway, judging from Madame Tuspel's reaction to Mr. Sholmes' deduction, I think perhaps we might not have identified the man quite correctly. I think this is the guy she took the arm off of. What? The man has a stub sticking out on his shoulder where his arms should be. Oh, well, that settles that then. Right, this isn't a real person at all. His entire arm's been ripped off from shoulder down. His arm's been... Of course, that ties in with what we just found out. Who is this fellow? To find the answer, we need only observe his shoulder stub. No such boneless humans walk this earth, of that I can assure you. In other words, the man standing here, the young Sergeant John Clay, is in fact, defying all odds, a waxwork model. I seem to remember it was you who concluded he was a real person in the first place, Mr. Sholmes. He has become quite a celebrity in London, being the winner of no less than 3 policing awards last year. I simply had to make a model of the man. Naturally, what other explanation could there be? And it was the detective's arm that was pulled off by the man on the floor in the special exhibit, wasn't it? Next, we turn our attention to the old man. Okay, the price tag. A killer policeman called Ottermole, was it? Was he well known? It was all over the papers last year, but I can't say I know what he looks like. It's a very low price, though. Threepence isn't much money. Only enough for a few measly hours of gas in Mr. Garrett's delightful lodgings, in fact. So this is the special killer taken from the special exhibit, is it? The waxwork that somebody stole from the museum and tried to ransom for £200? Is this crusty old killer policeman Ottermole? Really? Perhaps we should have a good look around again, see if another idea crops up. Maybe it's something behind him? Oh, I can't. Oh, I was like, oh, I can't. Hey, look at this! The old man's tapping his foot! He seems to be fast asleep, though. He's not tapping his foot consciously then? So you mean... Must be a twitch. Never mind that. The point is waxworks don't tap their feet. Or twitch. And look at his arm, too. We've seen a scarf like this somewhere else around here, haven't we? The scarf? Bro, that's kind of kind of creepy. Maybe because it started like we started in like this camera angle, and then he just turned and he's like fucking moving. That's scary. I think that's all I can. Okay, what is it? What was the question? The sign tell the not this old man is the freaking twitching. Sir, you are right. The telltale sign that instantly proves whether or not this old man is the obvious twitch. Even the most realistic waxworks do not exhibit a twitch. In other words, this splendid old man is in fact a genuine member of Scotland Yard. Slight shift in your choice of adjectives then. And there you have it. Well, Madam Tussbells? Well, what? It was me who contacted the police and demanded that someone come in the first place. He is clearly fatigued. He is sound asleep. But then, what's this tag about showing the price of 3 pence? No doubt the price tag of the muffler, which the old Bobby purchased recently at a local market. And I presume you've observed the scarf tied around his arm. Does that not strike you, Mr. Naruhodo? Yeah, the secret sign used by the detectives to show that some criminal activity is currently underway. Of course, because, as you know, there has been just such criminal activity happening here. As you deduced from the very beginning, detective. So, it would seem that we finally arrived at the truth. The waxwork of the especially ruthless killer from the special exhibit has been kidnapped. And Scotland Yard are already investigating. But the model's whereabouts remain a mystery. Thus concludes Herlock Sholmes' great deduction of this horrifying puzzle. All sorts of people visit my museum here, men and women, young and old. Sometimes they drop in just for a short time on their way back from the pub. I welcome them all. But if anyone tries to damage my exhibits, I do not take it lightly. Anyway. Your great deduction was even more enchanting than I had been led to believe. It was a pleasure, my dear madam. I'm gratified that you enjoyed this spectacle. And as for your rough customer, I've no doubt he'll regain consciousness shortly and just go home. What concerns me more is the waxwork from the special display, if it was indeed genuinely abducted. Yes, tragically, it was. Then I would ask you to recount to us the events surrounding the stolen waxwork, in as much detail as possible, if you please. Very well, but after I have told you what I know, I must insist that you return to your work. The talents of a great detective could be put to better use, I feel, but as you wish. Tell us more about the stolen waxwork, please. It was some days ago now when I came in here one morning. I immediately noticed that a waxwork was missing from the special exhibit here. It is your most prominent display, so that's why the curtains were closed? And I found the ransom note in its place. The culprit must have broken in during the night and taken it then. So this waxwork that was stolen, it was a model of some horrible criminal, I suppose? Of a particularly horrible criminal, in fact. The killer who left a more profound scar on society than any other, I would say. The Professor. Not a name I've heard of. So, Mr. Naruhodo, it seems the circle is complete. Sorry? The professor case happened at around the time I was born, didn't it? Or didn't it? Indeed it did, Iris. 10 years ago, a series of murders that rocked the capital. 10 years ago? Yes, at exactly the time that Barack Van Zykes graduated from university, in fact. What? Surely he's not saying. So the big event that changed Mr. Reaper's life? As you've surmised, it was the professor case. Who was this professor then? It was a series of gruesome murders that had all of London gripped in terror for a decade. No, I hope not. A decade ago. After 5 victims were killed, the man was arrested and put to death. And now he's immortalized here in wax for all Londoners to admire and enjoy. Though, of course, he happens to be absent at present on account of the abduction. But I don't understand. How is it all related? How is all this related to Lord Van Zykes? You must first understand, my dear fellow, why is it that the professor earned such infamy? It was due to the victims he chose, some of Whitehall's finest. What do you mean? Those murdered by the professor were some of the highest members of the British aristocracy, members of the nobility, even royalty. It sent shockwaves through the country's administration. Members of the... Oh, wait, of course. What Professor Harebrained said. Lord Van Zykes is from a family with noble blood. Oh, gosh. It was the 5th victim that led to the professor's arrest. The last of the killer's prey was a young noble by the name of... Clint Van Zykes. No, I don't believe it. Van Zykes? I'm sure you can piece together the rest for yourself. In the wake of his older brother's murder, the young Barack pursued a career as a prosecutor, and eventually became the Reaper we know today. I had no idea Lord Van Zykes had such a tragic past. Well, I'm afraid that's all I can say on the matter, for the time being at least. After all, I have work to do. As a waxwork exhibit. I am afraid I shall have to excuse myself as well. Oh, yes, of course. It's been a pleasure. Thank you. Well, none of the predicted scenarios I've been analyzing involved you coming to visit me here. It's been too long. It really has. I'm delighted to see you, Barack. It's been 10 years, and here we are, meeting in a prison of all places. I can't forgive myself for what happened to Mr. Osman. I just can't. I still can't believe it could happen. Tomorrow, the court will decide. Yes. I have a young Eastern man acting for my defense. He seems reliable enough, though. It was an accident. A terrible accident. He assures me he can prove it. I must warn you. Oh, I know, I've heard already. You're going to be prosecuting, aren't you? Yep. Since I returned to England, I've heard lots of stories. Barack, are you really? What? Never mind. I know that you have my best interests at heart. My friend is on trial. I wouldn't entrust it to anybody else. Of course, I fully understand. Thank you. Until tomorrow, then. I'll see you in court.